Good day, everyone, and welcome to the Animal Welfare Group Nigeria. I am Iyasiroluwa Shonsera. I'm the coordinator of the group, and today I'll be the host and also the moderator, so I have a lot to do today. I'm so excited about today's panel discussion on equity, diversity, and inclusion. But before I go on, I would like to introduce the group to you. The Animal Welfare Group was founded in the year 2019 after a gathering of students and lecturers at the Federal University of Agriculture, Abeokuta. The missions of the group are to increase awareness of animal behavior and welfare in Nigeria, Africa, and the world at large. Secondly, is to foster collaboration and networking among researchers who are in the field of animal behavior and welfare. And thirdly, is to educate the public on the importance of animal behavior. So our role is to talk about animal behavior, and we are not limited to farm animals. We talk about companion animals, wildlife animals, zoo animals, even fisheries and aquaculture. Yes. So today we're having our second panel discussion in 4 years. And our panelists are Dr. Linda Greening from United Kingdom, Dr. Aline Garcia from the US, Dr. Samuel Durosharo, he's from Ogun State, Nigeria. Dr. Bukola Oyebanji is joining us from Osun State, Nigeria. And Mr. Tumise Eyibo is joining us from Canada. So thank you all to all the panelists for your time to attend today's panel discussion and to share insights with us on this topic. I also want to welcome all the participants. Thank you for, being prompt, and always attending our meetings. Like I said, this is a panel discussion where we'll be discussing issues related to equity, diversity, and inclusion. So feel free to engage with our panelists. If you have any specific questions, you can please drop them in the chat box and I will read it out. And if you want to speak to them, and maybe we should even give that opportunity for you to speak. So please, if you have a question that you want to say by yourself, you can use the reaction button just down there to indicate that you want to say something, and then I will unmute you to do that. I'll be happy to have you introduce yourself in the chat box. Let us know who you are and where you're streaming from. And with that, I would say thank you once again for joining us. Before we go on, I'll give the panelists just 1 minute each to introduce themselves. I'll start with the first person here, Samuel Durosharo, please, just 1 minute, in 1 minute, please.
Thank you very much, Samuel. I'm a senior lecturer at the Department of Animal Breeding and Genetics, Federal University of Agriculture, Abeokuta, Ogun State in Nigeria. I'm the co-coordinator of Animal Welfare Group Nigeria. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much for this opportunity, Dr. Yashiri and the Animal Welfare Group Nigeria. My name is Tumise Faith Ehibo, and I'm a second-year master's student in the Department of Animal Biosciences at the University of Guelph. I'm also an Ariel Food Institute scholar here at the University of Guelph. And I'm a member of the Animal Welfare Group Nigeria too. So I'm happy to be here and to be given this opportunity to be a panelist today. Thank you.
You forgot to say that you're also leading the Canadian Animal Welfare Study.
We'll get to that.
All right.
Hi everybody, I'm Dr. Linda Greening. I'm at Hartpury University, which is a land-based specialist university in the UK. I'm a senior lecturer here. I specialise in equine behaviour and welfare. I'm also head of inclusivity here, so I oversee EDI practice and policy and philosophy at the institution. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Arlene Garcia. I am an assistant professor in animal behavior and welfare at Texas Tech University. And I'm also a multi-species animal welfare consultant throughout the US.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I'm Bukola Olanike Oyebanji. I'm from Obafemi Awolowo University. I'm a veterinarian with special interest in animal welfare. And I'm really happy to be here today to discuss DEI. and anything animal welfare. Thank you.
And the first thing to discuss is just to have an idea of how this EDIA, how did it actually start? Because I know it was not something that was taken so serious several years ago, but how come it's becoming a serious, topic now that most societies, most institutions are considering very, very important?
Thank you very much. We all talk about EDI. Sometimes we have added some other abbreviations like justice. Some people call it EDIJ. Then some people call it EDIA. So the A is accessibility. But originally it was inclusion and diversity. And all these things started from the United States. Initially or originally in the United States, the Black were usually discriminated against. And we have people like Rosa Parks that was in a bus and she refused to stand up for the white. Then we have people like Martin Luther King Jr. that was always talking about equality. He was always talking about the right of everybody, irrespective of their age, color, gender. But basically, Martin Luther King was always talking about color, that everybody, irrespective of your color, you are the same. So, but the education of EDI started in 1960s because there was always a kind of combat, a kind of war between the white, the Black, and the brown. So the white will tell you that we are superior to you. The Black will never agree. So there was always a kind of fight. And they started this education in 1960s. And the hope was that diversity education would give voice to the silenced Americans. So people started talking about his or her right, irrespective of his or her color. And they formed what is called Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. So this commission was trying to look at how people give job to people of different colors. So they started implementing this. And at the end of the day, there was this slogan that we are here, get used to us. So
I really love that.
So later in the year, people started adding some other things to inclusion and diversity. People have added justice. People have added accessibility. And in years to come, a lot of other things will be added. Thank you.
Here we are. You need to accept.
Get used to us.
Who wants to add to that?
Yes, there's been a lot of historical events and movements by various groups over time. And there have been some real key milestones when you think about what those movements and groups have achieved and how organizations have recognized the importance of diversity and inclusivity in the workplace. And in terms of capitalist society, I guess that has driven a lot of the movement as well, recognizing how to promote a healthy, diverse and successful workforce, which might be a controversial way of thinking about it, but also
people of different background in an environment, as for instance, in a working environment or in a research institution or in a university, what value do you think this can bring, to an institution?
As far as what it brings to an institution, I don't know if you know this, but here in Texas, the senator removed funding for any type of DEIA program. So we no longer have an office for DEI. And so I think that it is important to have an office that helps promote a lot of the activities that happen throughout the university. So now that we don't have this office, for us, it becomes a little bit difficult because we have a lot of organizations like the Latino Hispanic Faculty and Staff Association, the Chinese Faculty and Staff Association. So all the funding has been pulled. So we don't have a way to get together as a team and move forward on different issues. And so having DEI, especially in academia, is important because it helps us unite, right? And so when you have that unity within individuals, it's important. It's a way to share. And so typically we would get together, all of the associations, and have different luncheons and share experiences, and unite on certain issues. But now we don't have that opportunity. So when you have it, you take it for granted. And when you don't have it, you realize, it's important to have it. And it's important for people to feel part of something. And so nobody wants to be in a position where they feel isolated as the only Hispanic or as the only Chinese or et cetera. So when you unite together in diverse environments, it promotes, equality and inclusivity. And so we all face some of the same struggles and work together to fix some of those.
Yeah, thank you so much. But can I just ask you why that office was, why it is no more in existence?
So it was the Texas senator that decided to remove all funding for those offices. And we don't really know how it started, but there is like a little bit of background, he said, she said type of thing, where a lot of institutions were hiring faculty based on diversity, and there were some issues with that. So they were called like diversity hires, things of that nature. And I just don't think it set well with his office, and it was removed.
Yeah, is there any difference between equality and equity?
So I can speak a little bit about that because I've been opportune to attend some EDI events recently here at Guelph. So equality is actually different from equity, although we use them interchangeably sometimes in day-to-day life. But equality means treating everyone the same way, irrespective of their status or their identity. While equity means being fair to everyone based on each individual's needs and circumstances. So I saw a very, very good analogy at the last EDI event I attended. So it's like there's a mango tree and people of different heights are trying to pluck a mango from it. And that was a very interesting analogy I really liked. And there's someone who is really, really tall who doesn't need a ladder to get to the mango and can just pluck it. So if you look at it from the equality angle, it means everybody needs a ladder. You are giving everybody the same thing. You are being equal, giving everybody the ladder to pluck the mango. But if you look at it from the equity angle, you just have to provide ladders that are high enough for other people of maybe a shorter height to reach the mango tree. And that's I felt that was a very, very nice analogy of what equality and what equity means. So equity means meeting people at where they are rather than where you expect them to be. It's giving them, that's why I said you can use it interchangeably. It's giving people same opportunities, making people who are a bit disadvantaged, trying to give everybody a leveled ground to achieve the same outcome. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. For instance, I want to believe from the look of things, our panelists mostly are lecturers. Yeah. Yeah. So how can we bring in equity into the classroom? Inclusion, how do you encourage it in the classroom?
We've been given the historical background, but looking at the Nigeria situation, I was looking at it that the NYSC scheme, the National Youth Service Corps scheme, actually was created as a DEI scheme. Because, after the war, I'm sure when we talk about DEI, we are not only talking about race, we are talking about ethnicity. And that is really very critical and important in Nigeria or any big country where you have many ethnic groups. I tried to check the number of ethnicities in Nigeria, and I think we have about 371. Somebody sent something to my WhatsApp, and it was credited to the first Prime Minister of Nigeria that Nigerians really did not want to come together. It was the Britain that brought us together. So when we are talking about DEI, we should not look at it as race alone. Ethnicity should come in. So as a teacher, there are some examples that you give. I have seen that. There are some proverbs that we use in Yoruba land. There are some examples. There are some things that to somebody from Nigeria, but another ethnicity, you are not passing across your message. There are ways we relate that when you look at somebody not from your ethnic group, it becomes difficult for another person to be able to relate with you. So in classroom, one of the things I do, of course, is sometimes I enter the classroom and I will ask them, who is from this part of the country, who is from that part of the country. But I can only capture like 3-4 ethnicities, especially the major ones. The minorities cannot really be captured. So I think as teachers, we should be sensitive to the ethnicity and the race of the students that we teach. There are some examples, there are some things we do that to one ethnicity means one thing, and to another ethnicity, it means another thing. And it can affect how they learn, it can affect how they relate, it can affect how they feel free in the class to be able to contribute and discuss. There are some ethnicities in Nigeria. For people from my own side, we see them as being very forward because our own ethnicity, where an elderly person is talking, you don't want to seem forward. And that can influence the way you see your students. So I think when we are looking at DEI, we should look at it both racially, ethnicity, gender, and all the rest. And as teachers, we should try, because sometimes it's not possible, especially with very large classes and for some universities where everybody in Nigeria could come. So I just don't want us to look beyond Nigeria and start looking at race, because we might not have a lot of race issues in Nigeria, but we have quite a lot of ethnicity issues in Nigeria. And the first time I really got used to this DEI was last year. I was at Iowa State University. And there was I think it was 3-day program, March 1st to March 3rd. And all of us were told to come. We were there. We had different lectures. And for somebody just coming in from Nigeria at that time, it was really a beautiful program. I was able to meet other Black. I was able to meet the whites. It was like they could hear my voice, that I wasn't lost in the crowd. And, after that program, people will see you and greet you. Somebody can tell me, oh, I saw you the other day, and say, oh, yeah. And sincerely, it was really very good. So I think for us as teachers in Nigeria, we should put a lot of focus on ethnicity. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Let me just add to that. I'm coming, Professor Kolade, because we have audience who are not Nigerians and they may not understand when you mention the National Youth Service Corps. So I need to explain to them. So what happens in Nigeria is that after graduation, there is a 1-year gap where everybody needs to serve the country, and they try to, mix you. So if you studied from the Southwest, you may be taken to the northern part, so that when you go there to do that service, you may be assigned to different, maybe to schools. It depends on your area of expertise, what you actually studied in school. So they may assign you to go to the north to teach, for 1 year, just to gain experience, to learn the new culture of that new area. So that's how they mix. They mix everybody up. So you get to meet a lot of people. At times, even a lot of people have even married, in the new environment where they went to serve. I studied in Abeokuta and I served in Benue State. So Benue State is in the east, right? Is the eastern
Middle belt.
Middle belt. Okay.
Middle belt.
Though I was there for 3 weeks and I had to come back to my state because there are exemptions, because I was married, you understand? So I could go, but other people, the other exemptions are those that are above 30 years of age when they graduated. So if you graduate at the age above 30, you're exempted from that NYC service. So Professor Kolade, what do you have to add to this?
Okay, thank you. If I may quickly add to what the last speaker has just made reference. Nigeria is the issue of EDI is a great issue in Nigeria because what the NYSC intend to achieve, the purpose is lost. You cannot, for instance, look at it from an employment point of view. Even the federal character that could have managed this EDI we are talking about is not working in Nigeria. You can't seek for employment easily outside your tribe and get it. First, they will consider the indigene of the area. So it's a major issue in Nigeria. So, but now to the class. I believe that even before the class, that also remind me of the quota system issue. They keep telling you that if you are from this region, you are giving this percentage. So all those ones make the EDI a serious issue in Nigeria. So
about the issue of indigene being considered or given preference, I don't think it's a Nigerian thing. I think it's a global thing.
Well, I just want to add, it could be a global issue, but it's more pronounced in Nigeria. Like you said, if somebody is not yet a citizen, but now look at Nigeria, we are all indigene of that country.
Okay.
So when you are now treating those within the system by birth or by right differently, then is an issue. That's addition I want to make.
Okay. How can we consider this? We've talked about the classroom, but before we leave the classroom issues, you know, there are times we have students of different capabilities in the same class. For instance, some may be so intelligent that they understand, you know, easily, while there are some that would, they still need time, you know, to even grab what is being taught and things like that. And of course, we could have introverted students who don't really like, you know, interacting in class. And we also have those that are active. So how do we, you know, make sure that everybody is on the same page or being carried along?
Because when I started lecturing, my final year class, they were 12.
Okay.
And over the years, the classroom continued to become bigger and bigger. And this year, they are over 100. Now, the type of care or focus or time that I have for 12 students with 120 students. So when we are looking at how we can be equitable in class, I believe it is for each and every one of us. Sometimes I tell myself, deploy technology. Those students, they weren't doing too well in my class. And I think it was because, well, they were just coming into the university. So they weren't used to the system at all. You know, the normal Part 2 students, they have gone through preliminary stage. So they are more used to the system than the Part 2 students. So that time, I told all the direct entry students, I started giving them extra tutorials. So apart from class, I will meet with the Part 2 students, give them extra tutorial, give them assignments. And, you know, some of the students that were not direct entry, at the time, some of them started complaining that they would have preferred to join the class. Oh, for goodness sake, I couldn't do it because we are talking number here. And for that Part 2 class, we used to have like 300 students in class. So I could not undo this extra class for the non-direct entry students. So one of the things I just noticed is, okay, in class, we can deploy technology. All this Google Classroom and the rest of it. So instead of meeting them one-on-one, if I want to do that now, that is what I will do. Instead of meeting those students for tutorials, limiting me by meeting them one-on-one, I can make it an extra class for anybody who is interested. But that now depends on the student. If a student feels he's weak, then he can join. Or, you know, there are some weak students, you give them all the opportunities, they are still not doing anything. I don't think there is anything that anybody can do there. So one of the things I'm telling myself now is learn to use technology the more. So I'm trying to learn how to use technology to help me. But at least that was something I did before when I discovered that some set of students weren't getting as good as the rest in class. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Who wants to add to that?
So I've been opportune to work as a teaching assistant this year, and I teach seminars twice a week. Obviously, I don't have as much experience as the other people on this panel because mine is still early. So, but I teach second year students animal care and welfare course. I teach twice a week, and something I've been able to understand is, especially being a student myself, is that students in class have different capacity, as Dr. Yashere said. Some people are visual learners. Some people will get it immediately once you say it. So what I try to do is when I prepare my slides for these seminars, I always like use a mix of visuals, notes, and I always try to do more explanations based on the time I have. So, for example, if I'm speaking to a Nigerian, in Nigeria, like most of us, we speak very, very fast. But I figure that when you are speaking to people of other countries or people of other backgrounds, if you speak very fast and with our accents, they may not really get you. When I speak in class, I try to slow down a bit. I'm conscious that the people I'm speaking to, if I go very, very fast, they may not understand what I'm actually saying. So I try to slow down based on my audience and try to speak to them in a way that everybody can understand. And I also make room for questions. I have students who's shy. We have shy students. We have some who are not afraid to speak in class. So I make room for questions. You can ask questions in class. And I also say, if you have a question and maybe you are shy to say it in front of everyone, feel free to email me after the class, and I'll be happy to answer your questions. So yeah, those are some of the techniques I currently use. I know there's still a lot of improvements that can be made, but based on where I am now, that's what I do. So yeah, that's what I have to add.
Yeah, that is good. At least make use of visuals, videos, text, case studies, different diverse, teaching. So I would like to hear from everybody on the panel because we can learn from each other. It's possible what you're doing is something new that we may learn from.
I would like to build on what just said around the variety of students that are in the class who do and don't want to engage with that question opportunity. But we really want to hear their experiences because it builds on that rich learning environment. And some of the ways that we do that is providing an anonymous virtual platform for students to be able to post their contributions on, so that they don't have to speak up in class, but they can still share their experiences and have those then included in the lesson format too. So virtual polling and things like Padlet are also really nice ways of being able to engage those types of students.
Wow. Wow. So it means that no matter how hard you try, there are still some students that are not, comfortable speaking in class.
Yeah.
Wow. Aline, how do you go about this? What's your strategy?
So we have, we never want to isolate anybody and ask questions. Well, how do you feel? How do you, we don't seem to do that very much here in the US. So alternatively, if we do have students that are falling behind, we refer them to a specific office here at the university, which deals with disabilities. And so many may have learning disabilities. And so that office identifies the individuals that do have learning disabilities. And once they're identified, then the professors are notified and we have to make special accommodations for them. So whether it's giving them extra time for quizzes or exams or whatever it may be. And so that helps us know, which students we have to pay attention to so that they don't fall behind. And so that's the method of us, making sure that we are including them and not leaving them behind by any means. We also have a system where we upload our presentations, and that system actually measures how well we're doing with our slides. Like, have you transcribed them? Have you identified the pictures? because there are students that, you know, may not hear well or may not be able to see well, whatever the case may be. But it rates your presentation. And so it kind of gives you a yellow, a green, yellow, or red. So if your presentation is really bad and you haven't really explained the, you know, the content well, it'll give you a bad rating. And so you have to go back and fix certain things to make sure that the students are able to read off of the content and understand what you're talking about. But also if they fall behind and they're a little slow, it's all transcribed. And so they can go back and read it, whatever it is that's on the slide or whatever you said, because here most of our presentations are recorded.
Okay.
Well,
Mhm.
Yeah, so at least they can go back or watch it over and over until they are able to
Exactly.
understand and get full grasp of it. That's a very good one. That's a very good one. Samuel, do you want to add to this? Because
Class is that I make every student to talk in the class. So when I try to explain something, I ask you to give your own perspective. You know, sometimes we are from different backgrounds. I teach genetics, and it's kind of difficult. So, and when we have students that don't have genetic background, I'm always very calm in the class with them. Then when I say something, I ask them, what is your view? How can you interpret this? Sometimes there are some group of, I'm trying to say, because I teach genetics, which is kind of abstract and a little bit difficult to understand. And when I teach students that don't have a genetic background, especially at postgraduate level, I'm always very calm with them. And whenever I explain something, I want them to say it again and give their own perspective. If I have students that can speak my language, are you with me, Dr. Yaseri?
yes, we are together.
So if I have students that can speak my language, I call them aside and I try to explain things to them in my native language that they understand better than English. So that's what I really do. And I want to say something quickly before we move to another discussion. When we were talking about equity and equality, what we do basically is equality.
Mm-hmm.
We don't do equity. And I will give an instance. Equality is when you give everybody the chance and the resources. You give everybody the same opportunities. But for equity, you look at the circumstance of each person and you make them or you give them something that will make them to achieve that goal. For example, when you attend a conference, in the conference, you want everybody to present in English language. Am I right?
Yes.
That is equality.
Mostly.
You have given all of us the equal chance of coming to the conference and presenting. But equity is for people that cannot speak English. Them an interpreter. Let them speak or let them present in their language, and there will be someone that will interpret to people that don't understand their language. That is equity, which we don't do. Another one is this. When you want to give scholarship, let's say you want to give conference attendance grant. Let's say the conference will happen in Estonia. You are giving Europeans 500 euro to attend that conference. And you're also giving 500 euro to people from Asia and Africa to attend that conference. That is equality, but not equity. For equity, you consider the distance from Africa to Estonia, and you give them more than 500, what we equate with what they need for their ticket. That is equity. So basically what we do is equality and not equity. So we need to change.
Yeah, concerning the language used at conferences, yeah, I agree with you. And I'll give you 2 instances. Yeah, in 2019, I attended a conference in Belgium. Of course, it's a U4 conference and everybody you had to present either your poster or your oral talk in English. But something really was surprising at that meeting, because a lady came from I think a French-speaking country. She doesn't know how to speak English at all, but she came along with an interpreter. And that really, you know, I looked at the dedication and what she would have gone through, you know. On a good day, she should have just come herself, but now she needs to pay for an interpreter, you know, to come along with her, you know, to help her translate whatever she's saying if they're asking her questions. So I saw it from the perspective that she didn't want the language to limit her. That was the way I actually saw it. But because the conference didn't give, you know, the opportunity for her, otherwise, if she didn't come, that means it would be relevant to her. I think it's something that needs to be looked into.
It is a huge question, isn't it? There is a Eurocentric approach to many conferences at the moment, I think, where English is the main language and it is a barrier. And whether there are opportunities to explore how to overcome that by incorporating like almost a UN approach to translation, to automatic translation, whether that would be possible, and how that could be brought up in conferences in the future. I know that conferences are really experiencing some constructive feedback at the moment. So there's also discussions around how all conferences should be able to accommodate childcare, for example, and that would reduce the barriers for parents to be able to attend conferences. So I think that the hybrid approach has been beneficial in a number of ways and probably can evolve further to accommodate, you know, some of the things we've talked about with language there potentially.
Last year, I attended a conference and there was a man that he got a travel grant to attend that conference. Initially, I was not too comfortable because I realized the person was trying to be on his own. So I was wondering, he's an African person, but I was wondering, how come? Is it maybe he's not used to people or things like that? Why is he trying to separate himself from, you know, from the crowd? And I try to move close to at least understand what is happening. At least I'm an African. I want to believe we should have similar, you know, situation that I can help, I could help him with. And it was then I actually realized that he doesn't speak English. And there was nothing I could do. So, but I just managed. I couldn't speak English, his language. I think it was French also last year.
Yeah.
Yes. And I just managed to just blend anyhow. He could speak little English, but he's not fluent. And I think he was feeling a bit, you know, out like an outcast because his English was not too good because it's from his French-speaking country. So, but I just encourage him that the little English, at least you can speak, just blend it, you know. You don't need to, because of that, you know, feel somehow. And that was how it worked. And at the end of the day, he was so happy because he felt, you know, welcomed by people, and he really enjoyed it. So I think this is an issue that we should see how we can, you know, try to encourage people at times, because I know there's no way we can solve all the problem. We should try to just seek out those that you think are trying to segregate themselves, or they look like they are being like an outlier in the group, and try to know what is really happening and just encourage them, you know, whatever little way they can just participate, they should participate.
I think I've seen in other conference places the opportunity to put your language on your lanyard so that you can advertise what kinds of languages you speak, so that people can approach you and talk to you in that particular language as well. That would be a really useful step forwards.
And I think that would be great. So now we've talked about the classroom, we've talked about conferences. Let's now bring it to our research team, you know. When you're trying to build a research team and things like that, or probably you need to recruit students and things like that. How does DEI, or I prefer the EDIA, I don't know, it's the same thing. Letter E comes before D comes before I. So, but whichever way you want to put the alphabet, how should we consider this when we are trying to recruit students to our lab? Yeah, who wants to help?
Well, I did a LinkedIn course on DEI, and a very short course. And one of the key takeaway there is that always know there is bias. So for anybody in the laboratory, let's know that there is always that bias. Sometimes it's unconscious, but it's until we are aware of it that we can work on it. Just like you said, if you hear somebody speak Yoruba where you are now, you are attracted to the person. I think for virtually all of us, we have that tendency. So we have to first of all realize the fact that we all have biases. And when we note that, that awareness will help us in our decision so that these people are comfortable in their skin. They know that this person has seen something in me, not just the color of my skin. And I know if I have to do that in the future, and I'm really, really looking forward to it, that I have to get international students. I think one of the first things I'll do with them is when they come, I'm going to tell them the reason why I picked them so that they know that it's not because I'm trying to fill a quota and it's just because they are Black. I will let them know that quality in them that is making me to bring them to my lab. And just like I said, I will be conscious of bias so that by the time I'm making my choice, I will be able to convince myself that my choice of student coming to my lab has not been because of the fact that they are from my ethnic group or anything, but that I've been able to use standard. And then, despite the fact that I'm trying to diversify, I've not sacrificed excellence for DEI, because that's one of the things people are. Sometimes you are sacrificing excellence for DEI, taking people that are not at par. And when we are talking equity, well, if you think I only need 1 to meet up and somebody needs 10 to meet up, if you have given that person 10 and you've only given me 1, I can look at it as being unfair. So I believe that number 1, we should know that all of us have bias. Number 2, we should try as much as possible to balance things out despite our biases so that students are not brought in that cannot meet up to the standard that we want. And then we are not excluding some students due to factors like race, age. And of course, I even want us to talk about age. You know, there are so many fellowship now. Before you apply, they will put, I saw some, and I was so eager, okay, let me quickly apply for this. And by the time they said, if you are over so years, you cannot apply again. Yeah, this is discriminatory. Because reading through, I could not see what age has got to do with this. It is not as if it's meant for early career or something. And the next thing you are saying is age. And you are blocking us all out by age. And you know, the thing about age is we all do not have the same start. Some started late, some due to one reason or the other, they are not there yet. And by the time they feel they are ready, you are excluding them.
Yeah.
So apart from race, gender, I think issue of age, especially in academics, is a very big one that I think DEI should be able to handle. Thank you very much.
Wow. That is that is another big aspect, because when it comes to age, I would just want those that are foreigners here to try to see from our own perspective. So Maria, please, just 1 or 2 minutes, I'll bring you up. Now, the Nigerian educational system, it is a huge story to tell. Most of us start, going to school very early compared to those in the European countries. At times you have a child of 2, 3 already in the, kindergarten, pre-nursery things. We start early, but we don't finish early. We don't finish early. And the reason is we have a whole lot of hurdles, to pass through. If the primary school is okay, secondary school is okay, if you don't have issues, passing your exam, because I think we still run a system where a student who doesn't do well I don't know if it has changed now, they have to repeat a class. Do we still do that in Nigeria? I just need somebody to confirm.
Yes,
So
yes.
if a child doesn't pass, because we have exams, and I think we need to talk about this. We write exams, and if a child doesn't pass the exams, the child cannot be promoted to the next class, so he will have to stay back another year while the others move. That is one thing. That is for the ones that are not really doing well. Now, that aside, the university system is where the big issue lies, especially in the public universities, where the issue of strike and strike and strike. So we know the year we get admitted, but we don't know the year we're going to graduate. We don't have any clue. Yes. There are times we can be on strike for 8 months, you know, and you are not 8 months in a year. That is like a whole year wasted. So for a 4-year program, you may end up spending 6 years. So at the end of it, you will realize that your age, you know, when you don't want to apply for things out there, you may have, you know, passed the age, and it wasn't your fault. It was the system. So how do we balance this? Yeah. So let me pick Maria. Maria, please.
First of all, thank you very much for inviting me. So I really like being here. I'm from Brazil. I'm a professor at the Federal University of Santa Catarina, and I know Seun through the International Society for Climatology, and Linda as well, and some of you here too that I saw the names. And I'm learning a lot of how things are happening in different countries. I think it's very important. And I'm reading what is happening in the US, and when Arlene said what is happening in Texas, this is so terribly sad, isn't it? And I just wanted to spend 2 minutes, if I can,
Please,
telling you a little bit about Brazil. There's so many things to say that let's see in the order. I don't know how much you know about Brazil. We had the last census published these days, and we discovered, I think we already knew that, but the population is mainly 45%, I think, Pardo, which would be brown, which is anyone that identifies as a mixed of races, more than 10% Black, and 43% white. So I am a minority in Brazil, but we don't recognize that. But since many years now, since I don't know, like 15 years ago or even more, we have a lot of affirmative action policies, and we still have them in action. Then I see the fragility of that because of what is happening in the US, and I think we are using it wisely, because I see it as a person involved in education and research, that one important thing is to bring more people to the boat, because once they're in the boat, they will be here forever. So like this morning, I was preparing an advertisement for a scholarship, for an undergraduate scholarship, and I had to write that one of the criteria was its preference for the affirmative action students. So we have lots of these policies, and I just wanted to tell you a very little story, and then we can keep thinking about this. Last year, I had an international visitor, and I was in the canteen having lunch with my students, and one of my students is a 40-year student. He's Indian, from a group that I can't even pronounce his surname after 1 year of being with him. And I have learned so much more from him, me and all the other students, than probably he learned from us. But apart from that, he was like a regular student. He was one of my good students. And I can never forget this international visitor telling my friend that told me later, he said, why does she have such an old student? What will come from this? And so I remember this when the colleague was saying, we have all these sort of prejudices, and we have so much to work. And anyways, just for you to know a little bit about Brazil and what is going on. And the last thing is that we have these policies to bring people to the boat, and we have to learn better how to really make it good for them. This is what I think Samuel was saying. It's not enough just to be included, and how to deal with the differences, the real differences that there are because of background, education, social, so on. we're learning, and I'm here mostly to learn from you. Thank you.
Maria, thank you so much. Sometimes we talk about all these terms, but we don't really do what they mean, especially in research. And then I have this experience when I was in the United States. There's this professor that will tell you that if you want to come to his lab, you must be able to lift 50 kg of maybe feed or animal. I was just wondering, I don't know why he does that. Maybe because the professor is always working with pigs, and pigs can be heavy. So that is always one of the criteria. And I don't see equity in this. So the next thing I would love us to talk about is how to advance EDI in research. When we are doing research, most times we are always concerned about our research being multidisciplinary. But sometimes we don't consider people from different ethnic regions, people from different races, people of different ages, and a lot of things. So I would love to ask Aline, how can we advance EDI in research?
I think as far as research, giving everybody the same opportunity. Something that we don't understand is that we do get a lot of international students, and yes, we can bring the international students, but how are we going to help them settle in the new environment? And that's something that a lot of our students are facing, because we have students that are from different parts of the world, Iran, we have people from China, we have people from, Latin America. And so we recruit them, and they come from a certain environment where they do things a certain way. And then they come to the US, and it's a culture shock, right? And so
Yes.
how do we accommodate these students and help them thrive in research when they no longer have what they're used to experiencing? And so that becomes really difficult, especially at our institution, because our goal with the students that we recruit, especially for veterinary medicine, is that they work in rural and regional communities. And so when we get individuals that are from rural communities, for example, I'm from a border town with Texas and Mexico, and we want to recruit that type of student so that they can go back and work in these rural, remote areas. But we don't understand that when we remove them from those areas and bring them to a heavily populated, community where they no longer experience what they're experiencing in border towns, it really devastates them. And so there has to be some way that we can improve what they're experiencing in the area that we're bringing them to. And so we do have a committee here at Texas Tech University School of Vet Med, that's a cultural competence committee. And so we get together every so often to do different activities, whether it's volleyball, and everybody gets a voice on the different activities that can be performed and or that will take place. And the purpose of that is to ensure that we're working as a community. And, if there's somebody that, I've had a lot of students say, hey, I know that you're from a border town. Is there a place here in Amarillo where I can get menudo or where I can get certain foods? And the question is yes. A lot of us know where to access that. And so that's really what we need. We need to make sure that we bond as a culture, or different cultures, to ensure that we thrive not only in our personal lives, but also in research, right? Because it affects us mentally to not have, where you originate from. And so as far as specifically for research, it's understanding how different cultures work, and how, because my sense of animal welfare may not be the same sense as one of my students that comes from Latin America, because animal welfare is not perceived as valuable as it might be in the US or Europe. And so understanding those cultures and having that background is important.
So thank you very much, Aline. Linda, do you want to add to that in 1 or 2 minutes? Our time is fast spent.
I can add very quickly then. I think Arlene's made some fantastic points there about transitioning into a different culture and the support that institutions can put in place there. Certainly, we are trying to build international communities at Hartpury and putting on specific events and providing space for students to get together, because we don't necessarily have on-site accommodation for those students either, which means that they're having to navigate through a whole new city, which is a whole different thing as well. So having a space to come onto campus and be a student and meet with other students is massively important too. We recognise that Gloucester actually is quite diverse, and we link in with communities there to be able to highlight where different things are available for a variety of students coming to Hartpury as well. So they're not reliant on campus, but they do know where to get where to meet their needs. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much, Linda. Linda, before we wrap up, please, I just want to take those from the chat box. I don't want to leave them out of this discussion. So there is a comment from Tosin Olonijulu. Like to shed light on need for diversity in animal welfare, most especially while some regions, most especially developed nations, won't support some research work indigenous to some developing nations. For example, we don't see support from developed nations on our tropical floras as alternative to the use of synthetic antibiotics or anticoccidiosis. The developed nations most often want researchers from Africa to come to their nation to work on floras known to their region instead of collaborating with works of benefit to our region and unveiling the potential for a more global impact. Do you understand? So,
yes.
yeah.
I don't know what the answer is. That's a really interesting point, and it could be quite political when you start to talk about medical issues there. But I know that there's a lot of work going on with research where, for example, in the field of geography, I think specifically they are recognizing the heritage of the land that they're working with, and they're really championing the indigenous people of those particular areas too. And I think that is something that's increasing in research. So it's not a case of going and doing something somewhere and taking all the glory. There needs to be recognition for all the stakeholders involved in that particular project. And yeah, I think that's an important point, but I don't think it necessarily links to this.
Yeah. So there is a question here. She wants a discussion about equity between male and female in society and workplace, especially when it comes to opportunities and promotions.
This is definitely an area that is gaining traction, and with all groups where there is inequality and inequity, I think that there is movement, and there is always a case of there are so many people and groups and cultures and everything that needs to be taken into consideration, and that's inclusive. But the movement with male and female, I suspect, is different across the globe, and I think we could talk about systemic issues in society that we need to overcome before we start to see any movement there.
Thank you so much to our panelists, Dr. Linda Greening, Dr. Arlene Garcia, Dr. Samuel Durosharo, Dr. Bukola Oyebanji, and Mr. Tumishi Ehigbo. Thank you so much for your time. And also to all the participants, but we really appreciate your time. It's quite interesting to learn from, people of different cultures. At least you will know where we are coming from and who we are, and then we see how to, bring in this balance into our lives, into our career, into our research. And I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day wherever you are. And bye for now.